Welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of FineScale Modeler Weekly.
That's right, Kendra, Tim, and I are back with more kits, books, decals, tools, serious discussions, and probably some fun.
That being said, let's jump right into it with the new product.
Yeah, apparently when Tamiya decided it was going to produce kits of the F-35, it went all in.
Following 1/48th scale kits of the F-35A and F-35B, Tamiya is back with the F-35C.
This is the navalized version of the Lightning II with a larger wing capable of being folded and sturdy landing gear, including twin front wheels.
Like the other Tamiya F-35s, most of the airframe is divided in upper and lower halves, including the wing out to the fold. The ram tape panel lines are molded just slightly raised, and the weapons bays can be posed open. The separate lower nose gets a detailed nose bay, and the intakes leading to the front fan before going into the fuselage, under the cockpit with tub, rear bulkhead, sides, controls, instrument panel with decal screens, multi-part ejection seat, and optional pilot finish the office.
The detailed weapon bay features plenty of structural elements, plumbing, and wiring. The main gear bays and the jet pipe with rear compressor fan complete the interior. Multi-part nozzle feathers finish the engine, and the tail hook bay can be posed open. The leading and trailing edge flaps are designed to be posed down, while the tail planes and vertical stabilizer are attached positively. It looks like the rudders are posed both turned slightly outboard. Optional inserts allow the wings to be shown folded or extended. Other build choices include open or closed canopy, for which masks are supplied, extended boarding ladder, and deployed refueling probe.
To fill the internal bays, GBU 31 JDAMs and AIM 120C AMRAMs are given. If you want to make it less stealthy, there are underwing pylons for 4 GBU 12 Paveway 2 bombs and a pair of AIM 9X sidewinders to go for beast mode.
Decals supply a ton of internal and external stencils, the limited ram tape seen on in-service F-35Cs, and markings for 6 American aircraft. The VFA 147 Argonaut's CAG bird aboard USS Carl Vinson in January 2022, a fighter from VFA 67 Warhawks on the Vinson in March 2023, 2 Navy birds at Naval Air Station Lemoore, 1 from VFA 125 Rough Riders in October 2019, the other from VFA 86 Sidewinders in June 2024, and a pair of Marine attackers, 1 from VMFA 311 Tomcatters at MCAS Miramar in March 2024, the other from VMFA 314 Black Knights on USS Abraham Lincoln in July 2022.
Tamiya's 1/48th scale F-35s build well, but there's a lot to them between detailed bays and decals.
This looks like a fine addition to the family, and it's sure to be popular.
Revell surprised us when it announced it had acquired the Stranger Things license.
The popular Netflix series features several notable vehicles, and that's what Revell is focused on initially.
One of the first kits produced is an all-new 1/25th scale 85 Chevy K5 Blazer.
In the show's first 3 seasons, this was the patrol car used by Hawkins Police Chief Jim Hopper. Revell pulled out all the stops here, starting with the sharply molded body that captures the Blazer's square lines perfectly. The underside plate has nicely molded details and doubles as the floor. It sits on a multi-part frame with leaf springs, shocks, and drive shafts, connecting the front and rear axles to the 27-part engine with separate cylinder heads, serpentine belt, pump and alternator, oil pan and intake manifold, and more. It is pretty much a kit on its own, and the bay it fits into is just as nice with firewall and radiator. This is a 4x4, so there's a transfer case too.
Inside, full-length interior walls bracket a bench rear seat and a pair of front buckets with nice upholstery detail, a well-molded dash, separate pedals, and a police radio on the center console. You even get Hopper's hat. Chrome parts supply bumpers, hubcaps, mirrors, and the reflector for the light bar. All the windows go in from outside, and there are lenses for the lights and the outside of the light bar. Soft vinyl tires go around 2-part wheels. Decals and color diagrams give markings for Hopper's 2-tone Blazer, including license plates, vehicle badging, and dials for the instrument cluster. There's even a box of Eggo frozen waffles.
Similar to what Revell did with its 1971 Boss 351 Mustang, this is a well-engineered and detailed kit and looks like a fun build. I'm a fan of the show and I want to put it together.
Revell has also made some adjustments to its 1/24th scale 1979 Camaro to make Billy's ride.
Originally a Z28, released by Monogram in 1979, it features a couple of engine and wheel options and a tub-style interior.
In addition to a new flat hood, Revell retooled the body, removing the openings for the T-top for a hardtop like Billy drives. Decals supply badging and 70s-era striping if you want to build something other than Billy's car.
Fun! Revell is also going to release Argyle's Volkswagen Pizza Boy delivery van soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Submarines are small in 1/700th scale, so this next kit may just be the thing for a weekend build.
From HobbyBoss, here is a Chinese Navy Type 094 Jin-class ballistic missile sub.
Comprising the lower and upper hull halves, a single-part sail, periscopes and snorkels, and a photo-etched metal screw, it has a low part count.
The paint scheme is simple and there are only a few decals. Again, perfect for a quick project. If you're building a collection of contemporary subs, this could be just the perfect addition.
If you build German World War II armor, we have a couple of terrific books for you.
Igor Donchik plans a series of books covering vehicles used by major units from the main combatants in World War II.
Volume 1 covers Wehrmacht division camouflage patterns. Beautifully illustrated by Igor, the 124-page hardcover covers 9 units with notes on patterns, road signs, tactical marks, and more.
Need help understanding German tactical marks? Grab Igor's 88-page softcover on the subject. It will help make sense of all those markings. In the final FineScale Modeler Weekly Season 3 episode, we looked at ICM's all-new 1/35th scale Humvee, a stripped-down M1097A2.
You can see that preview and read David Nelson's build review at the links below.
Now, ICM is back with the next release in the family, the M1097A2 cargo carrier.
The basic kit remains unchanged, with the body, suspension, and drivetrain all beautifully molded.
New here are the cargo bed frames and bench seating, a canvas cover for the cab, including doors, and clear parts to fill the openings. The rear window is designed to look like flexible clear plastic as part of the cover.
A small decal sheet provides instruments and lights, as well as markings, for a U.S. Army truck in NATO camo and one in desert sand camo.
Another great-looking Humvee.
Look for reviews of the F-35C and Blazer on FineScale.com in the future.
While you're there, check out all the stories, videos, show galleries, and snapshots on offer.
It's a great place to find scale modeling know-how, and we post new content almost daily.
Check it out. FineScale Modeler Weekly, brought to you by Hobby Zone USA, your source for hobby storage solutions, hard-to-find hobby tools, and aftermarket modeling needs.
We recently got the Fengda mini air compressor and dual action airbrush kit for review. And, you know, we actually got it a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hang on to this because I want to share it with all of you. Now, I will admit, I did pull it out of the box because obviously I had to use it. So it comes packaged in this. So this is very utilitarian. Not a lot of, you know, it's not bright and shiny or anything like that. Just a box. Comes in that, it's in foam inside that box. So the box is nothing exciting, and I thought that we'd just start with it out on the desk. Let's start with the airbrush. As you can see, this guy is not big at all. So it is a dual action gravity feed airbrush. It has a 5 milliliter cup, not a lot. That's gonna go in there. And a 0.2 millimeter needle and nozzle. Like I said, it's small, very compact, and that's actually kind of cool. And from what I understand, this brush itself was designed for use primarily with, you know, spray painting fingernails and doing airbrush work on cakes or even like airbrush tattooing. But Fengda thought, you know, it would probably be a good brush for modeling too. And We'll get to that. But anyway, that's the airbrush itself, just a very simple, very straightforward design for a very compact airbrush. The airbrush also comes with this little plastic case, which inside then has a pipette, a wrench to loosen and tighten the nozzle. And then if you don't have an air hose, this can be used to attach to your brush, and then you can attach a plastic or rubber air hose to the end of to supply air to your brush. So, nice little case. What else comes in the kit? Well, we've got the air compressor with this removable stand that can go right into this little recess right there. Got the air compressor. We've got the power supply for the air compressor, and then a 6-foot braided hose to connect the air compressor to the airbrush. To power the air compressor, it's pretty easy. You just connect the power supply right here to the bottom of the air compressor, and then you go and you put this, plug it into your outlet, or your extension cord, or whatever else you've got coming out of the outlet to power your air compressor. Also, you've got the 6-foot braided hose, so that just screws in right here. There it is. And then look at this. You put it right on. Everything you need to get started airbrushing right out of the package. So now that we know what's in it, let's go ahead and turn it on. So turning this guy on, it's not too loud. The stats for the airbrush say that it can provide up to 28 PSI for airbrushing. And this can be controlled through this dial here. Now, we're gonna start getting into some things that I'm gonna be a little bit critical of for it, okay? That doesn't mean that I am saying that I'm not saying anything negative about it. I'm just being a little bit critical. So first of all, as we turn this up, there is no indicator on exactly how many PSI, what the airflow is. You're not really being indicated, other than the fact that you can see that down here is off, and near off is going to be the least amount. And up here at the top side, that's your max, and so that's the max amount. So you're gonna be sort of toying around and playing around with it to figure out exactly what is the best setting for you and the paint that you're going to be using basically every time, right? So that's the first thing. The next thing is this, and you might think it's a small deal, but before we get to that though, the compressor is not too loud. It's not too loud at all. But look at the compressor. It's not super dramatic here, but the compressor does move. It has suction cups on the bottom, and depending on the surface that you're placing your compressor on, it moves more or less when the compressor inside is operating. There's a difference in the amount of vibration that you're going to experience with the compressor depending upon what your setting is at. So at a lower setting, see how much more it's moving there? At the medium setting, and you can hear the tone difference too and how the air compressor is working at different settings. And then at the high setting. So at the medium and the highest settings, you're not getting as much dancing around as you are at the lower settings. right? So that's just something to keep in mind too, because if you're airbrushing at a lower setting, you're going to get more of the vibration than you are if you're just pouring it on, coming out of it at the maximum setting. A couple of final things then from the airbrush, the air compressor side, I should say, and that is there is this stand here, which is nice. I like that. It's nice to have a stand. And it fits pretty well with the hose. You just might have to, once the hose loosens up a little bit, right, after you've been using it for a while, it sits on there. It sits on there pretty nice, and that's a handy thing to just be able to. So if you don't have a separate stand, it already comes with one for you. Lastly, we did put a meter on this so that we could, you know, sort of give you an idea of just about how loud it is actually. And it rings in at about 60 decibels, which could be about the loudness, about the volume of a normal conversation that you might have. So it's not very loud at all. Let's consider a couple of things about the airbrush. It is dual action, and it's really small. It's very compact, and for use with nails, for doing cake decorating, that kind of stuff, that's cool because you're really mobile. And that is true also for modeling. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you guys that we did the 24 hours of modeling back in November 15th. Aaron and I did 24 hours straight of modeling. We streamed it on YouTube. If you weren't there, that's too bad, because it was like a concert. Can't see it anymore. But I did use this airbrush to paint this guy. And what I found that I really liked about this airbrush is exactly what I'm talking about. It's compact, so you can get into small areas with it. It can produce an extremely fine line, pencil line, easily with that 0.2 millimeter nozzle. And even though it takes some sort of fiddling with the compressor to finally know exactly what the best flow, what the best PSI coming out of here is, where the best setting is, it does work pretty well. It does not have a self-centering nozzle, so you do have to use the wrench to take that off. And that's a tiny cup for paint. However, if you're doing small detail work, you aren't having to blow out a huge amount of paint. Now, on that guy, yeah, there were a couple of times where I'm painting more of the yellow and the red, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I got to fill up again. But overall, I found it to be satisfactory, especially when doing the detail work. One last thing. And this is something that I think we've talked about in the past, and that is, as long as you take care of your brushes and your airbrushes and any brushes in general, they're gonna work. They're gonna work. What you find with the more expensive airbrushes is that you get more bells and whistles, but you also get more, how shall we say, you get more finesse with, like the trigger mechanism. There isn't a lot of difference between, pushing a little bit or depressing this trigger mechanism all the way. It's basically on, and then you got paint flowing. And then it's just sort of learning how to manage that. And I think that's the case with a lot of the more inexpensive airbrushes. Now, this whole system costs $48. If you're looking for a detail brush, or maybe a brush just to start out with, this probably wouldn't be a bad option for you to invest in. I think eventually, especially if you have a small space, something like this can work for you really well. If you're in an apartment, or even if you're in a house, but you don't have a dedicated work area, You can have this, you can put it away very easily, you can bring it out and you can do the work. Maybe you do airbrushing on cakes too. I don't know. I mean, I like cake decorating, so maybe I'll give that a shot. But if you're doing detail work, or if you're new, I think that this wouldn't necessarily be a bad option. You're probably going to eventually upgrade from this compressor to something bigger. There's no really repairing this once it goes the way of the dodo. And how long that might be depends on how often you're going to be using it at your workbench. And then one final note. I sprayed both lacquers and acrylics through this airbrush. I found that it worked really, really well with the lacquers. The acrylics, particularly metallic acrylics, it didn't handle nearly as well. Now that can just be me, and that's just my experience right now. That can just be me not having enough time yet with the airbrush to figure out exactly what the thinning ratio should be. But I thinned it. I thinned it as I usually thin that paint, and then actually went a step further and thinned it a bit more, and it was still having a bit of a hard time throwing that paint out through that 0.2 millimeter nozzle. So that's just one last thing for you to consider if you're thinking, well, this might be something that I'm looking into. Remember, it is that small, because it's geared toward doing finer work. It's going to have a smaller nozzle. So if you're using a lot of metallics, that's something to think about.
So it's a nice little airbrush set.
Yeah, you know what? I won't say that they're complaints. My criticisms for it are small, quibbling, right? I mean, I think for $48, you know, that's something that, like, if my daughter didn't already have, you know, those tools at her disposal, that I could easily say, you know what, this would be a great start here. I'll help you, we'll do this, it'll be cool, yeah. Right?
For that price, I'd be willing to pay it just for the brush alone to be able to have that 2 mil brush. I wouldn't use it all the time, but for detail work, and since I spray lacquers most of the time,
yeah, I mean, if your brush right now doesn't, you know, already have that capability or that nozzle, and man, for some brushes, to get a needle and to get the matching nozzle to fit the brush that you have, you're going to pay twice that, right? I mean, it could be...
And this way you don't have to worry about changing out the needle and nozzle, which is always a risk, because there's a risk you're going to damage.
You could damage
one or the other of them while you're doing it. So yeah, you've got it. Yeah. You got it there. Why not use it?
I really like the fact that there are affordable options out there, especially for people who maybe they've been reticent to try to get into it, you know, or hesitant maybe is the better word to try out an airbrush. And it's just that, okay, this is just a really low bar to entry. Let me see what I can do with it. Right. So,
and you've got everything you need right there, the compressor, you know, so.
No, so it's neat. On to something else. So we are back. That's cool. Yep. And we try to do some thought-provoking things from time to time, right?
Yeah, as thought-provoking as we ever get. Yeah, sure.
All right. A contributor to FineScale Modeler and a longtime friend of the magazine. I think he's been contributing to the magazine for longer than you or I have worked for it.
Yeah, he's definitely a long-time contributor to
Scale Auto.
And then he came over to FineScale at some point in time.
Yeah. So contributor Mike Klessig, he sent me a letter titled "What Keeps You in the Hobby," and I'm just gonna read it to you guys. So bear with me, because at the end of this I'm gonna have a question for you, or more accurately, Mike has a question. But Mike says, we've probably all been asked what our first model was, or how old were you when you started? Most of us have been modeling for years, probably decades, so maybe the question should be, what has kept you in the hobby? We've probably also tried other endeavors to try and consume our free time that for whatever reason haven't had the longevity that modeling has. So what keeps us coming back? And Mike, he names off 3 things for him in no particular order: friends, the kits, and downtime. Mike asks at the beginning of this letter, so what is it that keeps you coming back to modeling? What keeps you coming back to your workbench? And we pose that question to you now. Let us know in the comments below. What keeps you coming back? Not how did you get started, but what keeps you returning to modeling, brings you back to this hobby? And let us know, because we really want to know, and we'd love to feature your answers at some point in either the magazine, on the website, or even in our videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yep.
I'm not going to answer his question,
Okay.
but I'm going to ask you,
Okay.
what keeps you coming back?
In
30 seconds or less.
Downtime, it's that quiet time. It's my time when I can focus on things, and it kind of takes me out of all the other anxieties and worries I have. And when I'm at that workbench, I am 100% in that space, completely focused on what I'm doing. I can suddenly find I've spent hours at that workbench without realizing I have spent hours at that workbench, because I get so focused on it. That's a big part of it. And then I think I've just always had fun doing it. Even a crappy day at the workbench, even a challenging moment, I still find that figuring out how to overcome the challenges is that's enjoyable. It's like, okay, I'm figuring this out. For example, on this guy. Speaking of things, I'm trying to picture how I'm going to take decals from a car model and adapt them to fit this, how I can realize the end result. But I think that's an anxiety for a lot of things, and overcoming those challenges, figuring it out, and then getting a result that you can be happy with, that sense of accomplishment is huge. Yeah. So that's my short answer.
There you go. Way more than 30 seconds. I'm gonna save mine for the print magazine.
Okay, you do that.
Everybody's like, that's not fair.
Yeah, no.
Yep, I'm not fair.
We'll pressure Tim to answer it another time.
Because I think we're gonna revisit this, because we're gonna get comments from you guys. We're definitely gonna talk about it again. It's a good question from Mike. So, Mike, thank you very much, and to all of you, thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Next week. Sorry. It's season 4. We're back, baby.
Season 4.
Is F-35. F-35.
It surprised us.
It didn't surprise me.
All this talk, Aaron, and you haven't checked sound. Dude. The airbrush is very small. And the airbrush is so cute. So cute. It's because it's tiny. It's a tiny little thing. The one day that I could use taking some direction, Aaron's like, I'm supplying you with nothing. You can drown. So getting power to the people. It's so cute. And cover it up. It's so cute. Aaron's just like staring at me like, what the f, dude?